What's up, guys? Welcome to Waggle Friends English. Today we are going to have a conversation using phrasal verbs of technology.
Yeah, we recently did a video talking about some useful phrasal verbs that are super common in the technological world, especially the world that we live in now, of just interacting with people online and doing things on websites and learning and growing and doing business. All of that kind of comes into focus when we're actually trying to do those things and we get these weird phrasal verbs that seemingly come out of nowhere.
So, how do you use these in a conversation? That's what we're going to model for you today. So, when you go to a website, what are the most important things? Let's say, 3 most important things to you when it comes to a website.
All of it for me comes down to the functionality of the website, but more specifically, I think it's got to have a clear menu. Like, I really don't want to be clicking around all over the website
The
to try
rabbit
to...
trails.
Yeah, I do not like that. It feels like back in the day where we were booting up our computers and it would take 10-20 minutes to just get the computer on.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
Or you've been visiting the same website for like every week for over a year, and then you find this whole new area you didn't know existed.
I'm okay with like having a link that I can like go to. I can sign in and then I can go to this specific link where I normally go to every day. But if I'm really interacting with the website, I cannot keep on bouncing around 20 different places.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
It's kind of like how before in some social media platforms they were like had like lots of tabs and things.
Yes.
Facebook was really bad at this for a while when it was like starting up. Like you had to go into all these different tabs on the right and there was this huge bar to choose from and very clunky.
Obnoxious. What's the second one?
The second one for me personally would be to have very little ads. I get like people and websites, especially ones that are offered free, they have to make money on ad revenue, but every time I get on a website and there's like a pop-up ad that I can't do anything else with, like it blocks my whole phone screen so I can't like read around it and stuff. It's awful. And so it's like, oh, well, then that's really not that important to me. Like this website is not important for me enough to try to deal with all this nonsense.
Right. Okay. Number 3.
Number 3, since I'm a question guy, I really like the idea of having some sort of engagement. So if that's just like a contact us page or a chatbot, which I don't really like chatbots, but just something that I feel like I can engage with the people on the website.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. Like a
things
discussion
to toggle, open and
board,
close.
comment. Yeah, a little bit. But like, I want to actually see real people having real experiences on the website. Like, I don't want it to all be just computer generated and computer led. I want there to be some sort of human to human interaction on the website. What about for you?
Speed. I definitely want that speed because I'm not going to sit around for 30 seconds while this website opens up. It will make me think that there's some kind of spam or lots of pop-ups that are fighting for server resources.
Yeah.
Or if it freezes up, it's freezing up a lot. I'm gone. I don't have time for that. I also don't like it when it's not just pop-ups. Pop-ups are pretty bad, but when there's a lot of widgets on the screen. Widgets are like these menus and information tabs on the side and recent posts and calendar, and I don't like that very much because it feels very crowded. Kind of minimalistic when it comes to website design. I like a very clean thing. I like big wide open margins because one, it transfers to my phone better in terms of page responsiveness, but like I don't like to have like a bunch of this. So if I lose functionality in order to gain a less crowded view, I will do that. Because it helps me focus. I don't like my attention being diverted. So those things too, when I'm about to like click out or go backwards on the screen and they pop up with like a...
Hey, 15% off if you sign up for our newsletter.
Exactly. That annoys the mess out of me because it kind of derails my like train of thought. And I never sign up for those because it's just that annoying, I guess. But
yeah,
that's kind of frustrating to me. Number 3 is I like to have like a message like compacted. So I remember this thing on some websites where you just scroll and scroll and scroll, and there's more and more and more pictures and information, and it feels like an infomercial, which means it's treating me like an idiot. Like I don't know what I'm looking at, and I just need to know, like, is this real plastic? I don't know what it is. I don't like that. I like to have as compact and condensed information as possible. So this AI generated content where it's like words and words and words, I don't want lots of words. I have this much time. I want to know what I need to know and be able to make a decision like that. So I'm thinking like no more than 5 or 6 blocks probably in one page. And I like to have like the images kind of on different sides or things like that. It just feels more roomy. It helps me save time. It makes me feel like the designer cared enough about my time in reading and understanding what their product is and what it's being communicated to me. But if it's just one of those like endless scrolling to get to the sizing chart at the bottom of the page, I'm out. Amazon has gotten very difficult for me lately.
I think there's an element like psychologically that if you're not like using something actively, it's easier to scroll because then you can end up finding something on there that maybe it's kind of clickbaity. Maybe it's a little like, hey, whoa, that was interesting.
Or photoshopped images that were definitely not there.
It's not worth it. Like it's not really worth like the time that it takes when you're actually actively looking for something. You have to scroll through all that information.
Well, and some people might actually like that. For me, I do not like shopping. I'm not a fan of shopping. I'm good at researching, but I don't like shopping itself. So if I have to spend money, I want to spend as little time as possible to spend that money. And it doesn't have to be expensive. It's even cheap things. I'm the same way. It's like, does it do the job? If I'm going to break it very easily, or if my toddlers are going to break it very easily, I don't want to deal with it.
It's kind of like zooming in to really get like the functionality that you really need. And that's it. No fluff.
Well, there's so many things you can plug into a site's functionality that are really cool.
Yeah.
But every new thing that you add adds more weight. It demands more resources from the server. It bogs the site down. It slows things down quite a bit and can cause freeze-ups. It can cause all kinds of things. But it can also be just confusing. And I don't like that. I just like this like clean slate kind of thing. I don't know. The sheer amount of websites that are just packed full of pictures and images and words, tons of words. I don't know if that's just that popular or if that's just what people believe right now. That's how you sell something. I'm not sure.
Probably comes into like just people with good intentions. They think like, I need something else to help me do this. Like, so instead of signing up for a bigger package for something that can do 2 things, I sign up for 2 small packages. I end up saving money, but now things are kind of disjointed. Right. And that just happens over the whole life cycle of the website to where it's like, oh, suddenly you look back on it and you're like, well, there's advertisements everywhere. There's a word of the day. There's a activity. There's a speaking activity. There's this and there's this resource. And it's just like, it gets to be too much.
So what about a web page makes you more likely to click on something for more information or more likely to dig deeper into the website and stay on that website longer?
Definitely interaction. So like being able to click on something and see it respond. So that means like drop down menus and stuff like that and just things where I can click on to get more information, even though that's like completely fake kind of thing. Frequently asked questions sections. Like for me, I really like those because it shows me that the website is not just some picture I'm scrolling through. Right. It's something that I can actually click on and interact with.
I think for me, it's all about like how quickly they're going to get to the point. Like, I don't want you to beat around the bush with me. If I'm going to a web page, it really matters to me. I need to know who you are, what the product is, what value does it provide to me, and how much it is. If I want to know more about the company, which sometimes I do, then I will dig into, okay, what's your mission? What's your contact page? What's your About Us page? Things like that. I mean, if I'm buying a toilet seat for my kid, I'm not going to be wanting all these perfect images and sunlight on it. And what about in this bathroom? It's blue. I don't care. What I need to know is like what kind of toilet it fits. Like, does it fit a round seat or an oval or whatever? Like things like that.
So why do you think that those things are there in the first place? When I go to a recipe website, why is now there always like this huge long article right before the recipe?
It's got to be search engine optimization, SEO. That's the only thing I can think of. It's like the more words that you have on there related to the content that your recipe is about, like the thing that it makes, like a chocolate cake, for example, then the higher you're ranking on Google, maybe it helps search algorithms know what you're doing, what you're talking about, and all this stuff. Some people, I believe, when they write these things, they're writing for their fans. I personally would not sit there and read all of the things about how good this recipe is or how amazing it is or where it comes from. I might be mildly interested if I'm trying to cook an international dish.
Or if I need some more help or something like that.
Right. Now, some of them go into technique. And if it's a more complicated recipe, sure. A lot of times you can kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know how much of that is on our cooking experience that we have already.
Yeah.
So we don't really need that. We kind of already know how to knead bread. So that part's hard. And they also have a lot of images depending on whether they're talking about how good something is or where it comes from versus how to actually do it and what it should look like at each stage. So it kind of depends on what it is. It's definitely a food culture, though. Food blog culture seems to have a lot of ads and a lot of words and pictures. Makes them very slow and drain your battery. One of the things that we've noticed lately is that technology tends to quit on us faster. Yeah. Like, it might be better and newer, but it's timing out faster. Like, it's quitting on us faster. Why?
I think it's two things combined together. Number one, I think the things that we buy, the technology around us, they're not actually made to be long-lasting because they are composed of different parts, many of those parts coming from various different places. It's not like an editor of a book that makes sure that every piece lines together and it's exactly how it is. It's not a director of a movie.
Right.
It should be, but I think in websites it's kind of like, hey, there's a plugin for this. We're just going to put the plugin here and just not worry about it. Even like big companies having Microsoft incorporating Teams into its whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's a big move, and they're just like, yeah, we'll add it in.
Just throw it in there.
But as a result, those multiple pieces don't always fit together. And like a puzzle that starts to not fit together even just slightly, then the result is that the resulting pieces can be really skewed.
So you'd say it's a hardware issue?
I think it's software. I think it's different people in different countries using different, not just programming languages, but concepts of what and how things should go together, even within the same company.
Yeah.
Trying to put those together, it's really difficult. But number two, you purposefully try to make things not super high quality, hardware in particular, so that when it breaks, you have to come back and buy a new one.
Yeah, I really hope that that's not as much of a thing, but I could easily see how it could be. I think there's also something else too, where it's just like updates bog things down, because eventually, you know, all of these new updates that come out will eventually exceed the capability of the hardware.
Yeah.
Like, for example, some CPU or some graphics card can only be updated to a certain point before the updates are now for newer technology. Like, it just outpaces the technology itself. Honestly, things have been so rapidly progressing in the world of technology that a computer that used to last 6 years will now only last you maybe 3. If you're using it like day in and day out, every single day, you're actually using the device. Phones, seems like every 2 or 3 years now. I remember I had one phone for a very long time. We found like my first or second phone ever, and it was like this Nokia, and then there's like a slider phone thing. And it still worked. But, like, I have a computer that I bought, 7 years ago now? And it quit on me here a few weeks ago, and I can't get it to come back on. I can't figure out what's wrong with it.
Also, there's an element of, kind of with my first point of, they're just more complicated now. Before, it was fairly simple coding to program a small cell phone that does nothing basically but answer calls and send a simple text message. But once you start adding all these functionalities and you try to put it in a smaller package and you try to get them to work together, like, for me, it was difficult to wrap my mind around that updates had to constantly happen. So it wasn't just like, I have a really good idea and it's going to be really solid, and then I do it and then done. Like, it's like, I have to have regular updates for the lifetime of this application. Like, that doesn't make sense in my mind. Like, people always say, well, security. And I get that. I get it. But sooner or later, there comes to an end of how somebody can hack into that system, hack into that program. You would think that it would be exhausted after a while, even security. But if it's that application having talked to a newer application that has a new functionality that this one doesn't have, and you have to do something with that. Like, if it's an iPhone that you say, hey, Siri,
Yeah.
An older application, even though it has nothing to do with Siri, has to have something in there about Siri. Otherwise, it just won't work together.
Yeah. They've all got to talk. They've
Right.
all got to communicate. So that's the hard part, I think, with technology. I remember I used to not update things for as long as possible because I felt like every time something updated, something broke.
And
So
that's kind of still true.
kind of. But I think more with cloud-based things, now that more things are on the cloud, we're putting more things on the cloud, uploading more things to the cloud. I think companies are able to issue these updates, but they're able to update their hardware when it needs to be done so that updates are not as big of a problem anymore. But it makes building websites more difficult too because you don't always know which plugins or which sites or whatever are actually doing this and keeping up with it. So that was a fairly advanced native-like conversation we would have on similar topics. Like this is very much the way we would speak about it. So if you were able to pick up on the phrasal verbs here and be able to see how they are used in a digital context and understand exactly what we mean.
That's really good because when we encounter new situations, we're going to encounter new vocabulary. That's why even if you have studied English for a long time, if you go to a new context, like an academic context or a technological context or a medical context, you're going to find yourself struggling with these, which is why we pair these within their own contexts.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to today's conversation and put some comments down below if you want to contribute to it. We love hearing from you guys.
Absolutely. And we'll catch you on the next one.